Well, hello. It's been a couple weeks. There hasn't been a lot going on here. A little bit with working on projects, a little bit outside. I've been back at school, so there's definitely a lot of lectures and homework. But luckily for me, a lot of my lectures are online, so I get to knit while I'm watching my lectures, and that is definitely, it's a good way to keep my hands busy and my mind focused. Without anything really exciting to talk about, I'll just go ahead and dive right into what I've been working on. So in the last 2 weeks, I've only actually finished one project, and then I have two that I'll just call them up to date because they are my 2 year-long make-alongs. One is a knit along, one's a crochet along. So both of them I have completed January's, but it's not technically a completed project yet. So the first finished object I have is my socks. It is, I'm just kind of calling them my fireside flannel socks. They are using Mockingbird yarn from Muse 2320. It is in the color Fireside Flannel. I didn't totally use a pattern for these. It was just a 1x1 rib at the top, a little bit on the leg here, and then I used a German short row heel and a little rounded toe. I was trying to make them a little bit smaller because I've had socks similar in size that I've made recently that were a little bit baggy, and, ooh, a hair. And while these ones fit really well up here on the ankle and on the foot, I felt like I didn't have quite the stretch I wanted in the heel. I like the way that making the short row goes without having to pick up stitches when I'm done, but I'm really wondering if one of the reasons I stopped doing it is just because of how tight it feels trying to put it on around there. I feel like it doesn't give me the same amount of stretch. I do like how it kind of gives that almost little like circle with the way the colors pool there. I don't think I'm going to be done making these. I know I've seen people do a little, like a miniature heel flap before a short row, so I may look into some of that. I feel like for some reason I don't want to keep making heel flap and gussets on my socks, but I don't know why. I just kind of wanted to explore something different instead of always doing a heel flap and gusset. And I can't quite tell. It may just end up I go back to heel flap and gusset, and that's my favorite. So these are Fireside Flannel from Muse 2320. The other projects that I have that are up to date, the first one I have is a crochet along with alt knots for a Stitch and Scream blanket. So each month it's going to be an individual crocheted square with a different stitch. I was really excited about learning a bunch of new stitches because I've been crocheting for a long time, but not necessarily going out of my way to use different stitches. If one showed up in a pattern, I'd do it, but it wasn't like a let's be adventurous and find all the new stitches. So this way someone else can plan the adventurousness and I just get to have fun and learn new things. So this was called the Spider Stitch. You can kind of see where it's been folded a little bit there. So the yarn is Wander Acrylic from Furls Fiber Arts, and the square's about 23 by 23. So when everything is done at the end of the year, I'm going to have 12 squares. It's going to be a nice size blanket, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I like the kind of drape. I'm not sure if you can really tell though. It's definitely a dense weave. So it's going to be warm, but not immovable. So there is, it doesn't really feel like a finished project because it's one square, but we are just in January. So I'm expecting the next square to be released sometime soon, as we are almost to February. And I'm sure before long I will have a very full tote bag of squares here to put together. So there is that one. And then the other year-long, this is a knitting cowl from Expression Fiber Arts. Oh, well, that just came right off there. That kind of threw me off. So this is the Advertence. Because it is a mystery, I don't really have a picture of the finished project. Each month a different clue is being released, and Expression Fiber Arts has their own dyeing and fiber, but I am not using theirs. I'm trying to use some yarn that is either already in stash, or in this case, because it's a year long, I have a subscription box with So Happy Jane. And so each month I'm going to be getting new colors anyways, and this way I can put them into this, and I get mystery with colors, mystery with the pattern, putting a lot of trust into people for this. So this was actually from the January box. December box? From the December box. So it didn't really have a color, just a solid blue. Let's see if it's visible there. And the first month's clue was just a very simple 20 rows. So it doesn't look like I have very much on this shawl, but it is just 20 rows of seed stitch. And I was a little worried how long it was going to take me. Once I realized how many stitches were on the row, like it was one of those where, oh, 20 rows, I can do that, no big deal. And then it was like, oh, that's a lot of stitches in the row. But it still only took me one afternoon. I'm guessing other months of the year will have more than 20 rows, otherwise it's going to be a very short shawl. The pattern does say it's supposed to have some mosaic knitting, so I'm guessing once February is released and we have another color introduced, I may have a larger chunk to do for next month. I'm a little worried about falling behind and not finishing it within the year, but I'm already I'm already trying to remind myself that I don't technically have to finish it within a year. I can finish it whenever I finish it. I can't go faster than the year, but it doesn't mean I have to go and finish it by December 31st. And there will definitely be some months where I know it's easier to make that month's knitting and other months where it's not. I'm trying to be realistic about it, but there's definitely that part of me that's like, no, this is a year-long make, so I will be done in a year. Hopefully I will. We'll see how it goes. This is month 1, so I shouldn't be nervous about being behind when I'm ahead on month 1. One of the problems that I am having with this is that because I can't make ahead, it has me kind of itching a little bit to like start another shawl of some sort. But then I'm just going to have another big project and feel like I can't work on this one, and I'm trying to be patient with it. The pattern is Advertence. I'm not 100% sure I'm saying that right. And one of the things they spoke about is how, you know, it's taking that moment to be calm and mindful and enjoy your craft. And so I should be enjoying the fact that that's what I have to do, but instead I'm feeling like, nope, I'm enjoying it, I want to do more. I've even considered getting the pattern from last year and just going ahead and making that one and having that one to work on when this one isn't here. And I also have a advent calendar that I just opened and I have the pattern to go with it, and it's like, ooh, I can open up that one. And I'm definitely itching to start a lot of like long-term projects right now, but I also really want to finish some things, so I'm kind of in that weird, I want to work on everything and finish everything, and I can't do both. So hopefully when the next part of this pattern is released, it will make me feel a little better because I can keep making progress on something. I definitely like the idea of a project where I have to slow down and I can't speed through it. But I also hate the idea of a project where I have to slow down and I can't speed through it. Because of course sometimes you just want to speed through it. Luckily I do have other projects I can keep speeding through, and I'm not always as speedy as I'd like to be. I think I'm starting to ramble. Let me get the things I'm working on now. Okay, I definitely think I need to get a little bit better at organizing my thoughts at the beginning of these, because I definitely went off on a long tangent there. If you're still here after that, thanks for sticking around. The first project that I have to show is a new pair of socks. I always have a pair of socks going. They're usually my car knitting. I kind of have a desire to have multiple pairs of socks right now. That's definitely a little bit of a theme in my brain right now, is start all the projects. So I have new sock yarn. I want to start a new pair of socks. I got new yarn for something else. I want to start that. I have stuff that's already in stash. I want to start that. I'm trying to rein it in. I don't normally have a lot of projects going at once. But for some reason my brain wants all the projects going at once right now. It's a little unusual for me. It's throwing me off a lot. So this particular yarn is from A Busy Life. And it says it's in the color Spring Dawn. I think it's from a sock club, it says on here. I found this maker. Let's see if I can get this to focus a little bit. No. All right. Sorry, I'm still working on getting my autofocus to work better. I will link to the shop down below. I found them on Etsy, and I didn't actually order the specific color. I'm not a part of a sock club from them, but they had a mystery grab bag where it's just a sock set, mystery color with a little mini skein to go with it, and I just was, hey, it's on sale, I'll give it a whirl. And I was very happy with the color I got. So I am working these socks on double pointed needles and I'm working on them in tandem. Oh, this is not the one I'm currently connected to. So, I've got stuff everywhere, sorry. So the mini skein was this very pretty gray, and the main skein is this like cream with little bits of gray and peach and lavender, and I just cannot seem to get it to not be washed out on the screen today. I really have to work on my lighting. I'm sorry, everyone. The color of Spring Dawn I felt like was really, really appropriate as I was sitting outside of my work, and I had arrived a little bit early, so I'm sitting there working on these socks, and the sun starts coming up, and there's this cloud across the sky with like gray on the top, and then like just these shades of pink and purple, and I'm like, I know it's not spring, but I'm working on socks that somehow match the sky from today. So I'm not sure if you can really tell. I tend to work on my stuff inside out. I'm not sure if that's normal for a lot of people, but that's just kind of how I work on it. It always feels more natural that way. I've tried to do it so that it's right side out, and it feels weird to me. So I don't actually have a pattern for these. It is just a 2x2 rib, and I've done little stripes of the gray. So I did 3 rows, 3 rows, 3 rows, 3 rows until I got through 3 stripes. And as I did each stripe, I did 1 round of only knitting so that there's not really that overlap as the stripe goes. And I know I just said I was trying not to always do a heel flap and gusset, but the last few socks that I've done that didn't have a heel flap and gusset, I felt like the heel didn't fit right. So I am just going through it. I'm planning on doing the whole sock in 2x2 rib with a heel flap and gusset. I'm going to have the stripes. I just started a contrasting heel on one sock. I And then I'm also planning on trying for a contrasting toe. And the plan is to have the 2x2 rib on top up until I hit the toe, but not underneath. Never done the ribbing all the way around the foot of the sock. But there's just that part of my brain that's absolutely sure it won't be comfortable. And after putting in so much time into knitting a pair of socks, I don't want them to not feel right when I wear them. I know other people have done it. Maybe one day I'll have to try it anyways, but there's so many stitches. If I spend that much time doing these stitches, I want to wear them and enjoy them. So that is Spring Dawn yarn from A Busy Life with just kind of an improvised 2x2 rib pattern with a little stripe. I'm hoping to be able to finish these soon because I've got a lot of really fun sock yarn in my stash, and I have joined a sock club from Muse 2320 where I'll be getting a sock set each month that is inspired by cities along the Mississippi River. I'm actually expecting my first yarn from that to arrive today, so I'm really excited and want to make sure I have time to work through some of those. But socks tend to always be my car projects, and I work on bigger things that are not convenient to carry around with me in the house. I think I'm going to have to find another time of my day that I work on socks because there's so many sock patterns I want to do, so many sock yarns. It's not even like the pattern, it's just the yarns I want to work with right now. So that is currently my only pair of socks. The next project that I have going is my Magic Spring Shawl. It feels so strange holding up a paper pattern. I don't always print out my patterns anymore. But this is one I made a long time ago, and when I print up a pattern, I hang on to it forever. So I am making this one using yarn from the Teton Yarn Company. I had 3 colors, Purple Majesty, Brenade, and Last Light, all in their Yosemite fingering, which has this really lovely zebra stripe within it. So everything kind of has that marled look occasionally with that zebra stripe. I am fairly recently on my 3rd color. It definitely still has that big color block look. Let's see if I can get it all to fit on screen. So somewhere right here. Ooh, I don't have quite enough hands. So I don't know if you can really see my little stitch marker. That's where I was last time we spoke. So I was still well into this gray chunk. And I've just started my final color. So last time we talked, I mentioned I'd been having some soreness in my hands, and I realized it was only coming up when I worked on this project, and I could not figure out why. I had thought it was just working with lighter weight yarns, but for some reason it was only this project. So I did a couple of switches. I had it on straight needles. I switched to circular to see if that helped holding it a different way, and that definitely does seem to be helping a little bit. And I also switched where I was working on it so that it was, I tend to keep like a car project, an upstairs project, and a downstairs project at least. Sometimes I have more than one downstairs project. And I moved this to just upstairs, so it's before bed kind of knitting now. And that means I work on it for smaller chunks of time at a time, and it seems to be helping so that my hands don't get fatigued in the same way. I'm not sure why it is that this project seems to be fatiguing my hands. There's nothing unusual about it that I know of, but switching to the circular needles and the amount of time I work on it seems to be helping. So this pattern was technically supposed to be worked in garter stitch, but because of that lovely color and that zebra stripe detail within the yarn, I really wanted each stitch to kind of pop. So I switched it over to a stockinette. And I'm really hoping that in a couple weeks when I film again, I will have it completed. It's still cold here in Idaho, so I'm kind of hoping that I can have this to wear while it's still cold. And it is described as a shawl, but it's not a big shawl. It'll definitely feel more like a scarf shawl and one that I can wear around, but it's not going to be an oversized shawl. Maybe I should put it that way. So this is the Magic Spring Shawl adjusted to stockinette stitch. The Magic Spring Shawl was by Kathy. It was a free pattern that I got a few years ago. It will be linked down below. And then the yarn is from Teton Yarn Company. I want to say they're Idaho based, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to double check on that. I found the yarn at my local yarn shop, so they do carry some from some local dyers and things like that. I know this dyer comes occasionally there for like trunk shows, so I think they're Idaho based, but not 100%. I'm back to rambling. Thank you everybody for listening to the ramble today. So I have two more works in progress right now. One is in a very fancy box here. So this is one that I actually started in May or March of last year to use up scrap sock yarn. And it is the Beekeeper's Quilt. So each of these little hexagons are knit from leftover sock yarn I have from other things. Well, leftover fingering weight yarn from old projects. And my original thought was to make the 350-ish of these it would take to make like a lap blanket. And I am technically enjoying making the project. I love how bright and colorful it is. And you knit these little hexagons. They take me about half an hour, and then each one of them is stuffed just a... Sorry, my recording setup is still a work in progress. So you can see it's very sturdy, very squishy. I've seen people use this for like baby play mats, things like that, where it's not necessarily needing to have a lot of drape, because it has some, but it's going to be it would be a very thick blanket. And I think I was about 50 squares into knitting it, and I decided, I should start sewing them together. Otherwise, I'll have 350, and I will never sew all those together because it'll be way too much. And I'm really glad I did now, because this is just not going to be the kind of blanket I'll ever use. But while chatting with you last time, I kind of just throw it up on the wall as art and decided that is really what I want to do. So I have, I think, about a dozen more squares or hexagons I've already made. So I'm going to keep sewing them on, and then I'm thinking it's just going to become some art over here in my little cozy knitting area. And part of the joy of that is I can look at these bright colors, I can still enjoy them, I can remember the various projects I've made with them, like I dyed that one. And some of these, like I made these socks years ago. I'm not even sure I still have these socks. But I'll be able to have all those little memories and still see them and enjoy the bright colors. I really do like how bright this is going to be. And if I decide I want to add more onto it, I can just keep making them, and I've got a whole wall here I can cover with it, so I can still enjoy this pattern. I can still enjoy the cute hexagons, the bright colors, and enjoy it in a way that makes sense for me. If I try to enjoy this as a blanket, I'm not going to find it comfortable. But as art, I think that's going to fit me. So hopefully soon you'll see this up in the background. And for now, this is my Beekeeper's Quilt using scrap fingering weight yarn. So as you can see, a little bit of progress made on that, but I think if I had decided to do the 350 and turn it into a blanket, it would have taken me at least a decade, and then I would have discovered it's not quite what I wanted for a blanket. So really glad I've switched directions on that one. So my final work in progress is the Joost Pants, J-O-O-S-T. It is a free pattern from Lion Brand Knitting. I know it's not going to focus on this pattern, but it will be linked down below. These are just a pair of joggers. It's something I've been making to kind of challenge myself just a little bit, because I definitely feel like there's a very specific kind of project I tend to go back to over and over and over again, and if you don't challenge yourself, you don't grow. So I made myself a little set of like 10 different kinds of projects I would normally avoid. I'm trying to work through them one at a time, and currently it is a pair of pants. So, oh, it's all caught. So the yarn that I am using is We Heart yarn. It's a mega ball from Hobbii. The color is color 425. They number their colors. It's a gray. I'm not sure that if there's a fancier name for this particular shade of gray, but it's a gray. I chose this one because it's an acrylic yarn, and for pants, I really like the idea that they'll be easy to wash. I'm not sure I'd ever wear these outside of the house just in case there's like holes in the weave, but I still want them to be easy to wash, and I didn't want them to be wool because I was a little worried about like felting. As it is with my wool socks, even the super wash ones, you get that little bit of felting like on the heel. All I can imagine is after a little bit of wearing these pants, having like a slightly felted bottom, and that just seemed like it would look really weird and I'd never want to wear them again. So acrylic won't felt, and it will be easy care, which just really fits well for my life. So because, as I said, I tend to do things inside out, finding the little marker of where I was last time is on the inside, but I'm a lot farther than I was last time. So my little stitch marker is right here on the inside. So I hadn't gotten very far. I'd gotten about to here-ish. Maybe I need to start putting that marker on the outside. But I was way up by the waistband, and I am now almost through leg 1. The pattern has a variety of decreases for the legs, so do 3 stitches and then decrease, or 3 rows and then decrease for this many repeats, do 5 rows and then decrease for this many repeats. It's a free pattern, but so I'm not like trying to hide the details of it. I just don't remember all the exact decreases. But I just finished them all, and it's currently at a work until the leg is, I think it's like 23 inches long. But I'm going to try them on at this point to see how much longer to make the leg. And then I will make the other leg to match that. Just because, what's the point of making my own clothes if I can't make it the right size? I don't have particularly long legs, so I'd really just rather make the leg length fit me versus what the pattern says my length should be. And after I try them on, I should be able to finish this leg relatively soon. And I'm not sure if I'll have a completed pair of pants in 2 weeks, but if I don't have a completed pair of pants in 2 weeks when we talk again, I will definitely be very close. So far I'm really liking them. I did try it on a little bit when I got up to, when I was getting ready to split for the legs, just to make sure the waist and everything was going to end up fitting. And then when it's done, you fold this over and put a drawstring in, so it's not going to have that high of a waistband. It's going to be a folded over. I'm not sure if I'm going to make my drawstring. I do have a lucette fork. I have a little, I honestly don't know what brand it is, but one of those little cranker machines that will make I-cord, and of course there's always just making I-cord with knitting needles. I'm not sure if I'm going to make my own or if I'm going to buy a drawstring just for the strength of it. But if I make my own, it won't take me very long with any of those options, and then it'll match. So I'll probably just end up doing that one. So again, these are the Joost Pants. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. From Lion Brand Knitting. I will link to the pattern down below. So that is all that I am currently working on. As for making plans, this was a challenge that I gave myself to make these pants in January. I'm not going to make it by the end of the month, but I will still continue on. It's okay that I don't finish it by the end of the month. It was just kind of my challenge to for the month, if that makes sense. This was what I was challenging myself to in January. I've already decided on what I'm going to challenge myself to next month, and I may start working on that while I finish the pants. It's going to be to make a stuffy. I've done a lot of stuffed toys in the past, and then I just kind of decided, hey, I want to make something I could wear, and stopped making stuffed toys. But that doesn't mean there wasn't more patterns that I wanted to make, so I actually found a pattern from Hobbii for a Highland cow, and I'm going to make him. Because part of my challenging myself is to not have to buy yarn for it though. Instead of doing in the jumbo yarn that Hobbii suggests, they sell yarn, so it's obviously their yarn they recommend. I am going to be making it with some Knit Picks palette that I already have, so it'll be like a little mini cow. And I think he's going to be adorable. I'm hoping he's going to be adorable. I should be starting my next square for my Stitch and Scream soon, and continuing to work on the Advertence shawl. Hopefully in the next week the new pattern will be done. One of my biggest goals is to finish this right now. I feel like all this stockinette is starting to make my energy wane for this one a little bit. And I want to finish it while I'm still excited about it, instead of finishing it and looking at it and going, I don't even want to wear it, I'm tired of it. Because the yarn colors are so beautiful. And it'd be so heartbreaking to get tired of it before you finish it. The dyeing job on these was just really, really well done. I'd also like to speed up on my socks a little bit, but because that's car knitting, maybe I just need to do socks at 2 different times, and that would help. So I guess from here I can move on to yarn I've acquired. Let me switch out what I have around me. Alright, so if you've been with me recently, you know that I am trying to work from stash. Not like never buy yarn again, but make sure that when I buy yarn I plan on using, I use it. For me, it's a storage issue. There's just a definite little bit of, if I keep acquiring it and acquiring it, it ends up in boxes all over my floor instead of actually being used and appreciated in any way, shape, or form. So what I really am trying to do is be more intentional with my yarn buying. And part of that was, I have this little notebook, came in my Hobbii Advent calendar, decided this is going to be my yarn in, yarn out. I've got kind of weird criteria in my mind for what counts as yarn out. In my mind, I have to have completed a project, so that giant mega ball doesn't count. Nothing I currently have in progress counts as yarn out. I'm allowed to have scraps from it and still have it count as yarn out, as long as the scraps do not require a large amount of storage. So the socks I finished, that is counting as yarn out because I just had 2 tiny little bits left. I made a large sweater for my child the other day, and it had like a big amount of Bernay blanket yarn left over. That doesn't count as yarn out because I still have to store a large amount of that. That will count as yarn out when it's no longer a storage issue. I know a lot of people have, as soon as they start a project with stuff, nope, that's not in stash anymore. But what if I frog the project? You know, things like that were kind of what my mind was going to as, if this yarn is a storage issue, it does not count as out of stash. So some things like I buy more of, you buy a thing of sock yarn and that doesn't take a lot of storage, but it will take a while to work through, so I still have to think about that. Big balls of yarn, it doesn't matter that you're going to work up that project quickly. Until you do, that is a big chunk of yarn to store. So with all of that as kind of in my brain, I counted as yarn in the month that it actually arrived, so I have things that I actually had an order go missing from Hobbii in October, and recently everything finally got straightened out. We figured out what happened to it, and I'm getting the replacement yarn coming soon. And even though that was ordered way back in October, whenever it arrives, that's when it counts as yarn in. So with all that being said, if you look at the box at my feet, it doesn't look like I'm being intentional with my yarn buying. If you look at this page, I'm not sure if you can even see anything, but just seeing the long list of in and the tiny list of out, it really doesn't look like I am being intentional with it. All I can really say in my defense with this is that as I have various things on the needles that have been, all this just started this month. So this month it's going to look like I don't have a lot go out, but in February I should finish the pants, I should finish that pair of socks, I should finish that shawl, and that's going to count a lot of stuff as out. But because there is still the technical possibility any of those could be frogged and stuck back into my stash, I'm not listing them as out. So with that, here is what has come in. So the first thing right up here on top is kind of a small thing. It is my subscription from So Happy Jane. It's the hand-dyed Happy Yarn Club, and this is technically for February. You receive it a little bit before the month of it, and then she has like monthly Zoom calls with the club members. So these colors are just February Yarn Club. And then these are what I have been planning to put into my Advertence shawl. So that one over there is from December. Then I will have January, and then one of these will go in. So January's is going to be for February square. March's square is going to have February. I like that I'm working a little bit ahead, because if one month really doesn't match, I can put something else in. Or I can even just pick each one, like, okay, I've got the blue, what's going to fit next that will go well with the next color. And I can kind of pick and choose that way, especially as, while the Advertence pattern is giving recommendations for what color you use of Expression Fiber Arts dyed yarn, it also says if you choose to use different colors, make sure they have a lot of contrast. So since I can kind of see what's coming, before I make one, I already know what the next month's color is, and I can make sure they will contrast as needed. I'm most likely going to put this one into my shawl, and then save this one to do a pair of socks of some sort. I was a little bit worried for February that it was all going to be like bright reds, which is not usually my color palette. Pinks are okay depending on the shades of pinks. Like if it was a neon pink, that wouldn't entirely fit me. It was surprising to see these, and I was very pleased with just these nice spring colors. I do tend to like a nice cool teal, so these made me very happy. And then with them, I actually got a little sticker. I'm sure it's not going to focus properly on that. That's a heart-shaped sticker with a lot of flowers, and the colors just coordinate perfectly with this dyed yarn. And then a little trinket tray from Kate Aspen that just says love. I'm not 100% sure what I'll do with it yet. It might just sit next to me here to hold like stitch markers and whatever else strikes my fancy at the time. Maybe broken little poles from stuff. This sticker will end up going on a yarn cart I have. I have a few just like inexpensive carts I get from Michael's and Joann's that I use as part of yarn storage. And one of them I've slowly started collecting my stickers on, so that's probably where this is going when we're done talking. So that is February's Hand-Dyed Yarn Club from So Happy Jane. If you are looking for a hand-dyed yarn club, I've only done hers for 3 months, but I've never been disappointed. And all her other colorways, she did such a gorgeous advent calendar. I was so sad to have missed out on it. But by the time I saw it, I already had 2 others, so couldn't totally justify the price. And by the time I decided I really, really wanted it anyways, she was sold out. I don't know if she still has any spots open for March. She usually has a few spots open every month. I will link to her shop down below so you can look at her yarn. One of the things I love about her is that she is a hand dyer from my local area, so I really love that it's like a local hand dyed yarn. So the other things I have, I will get this large chunk next. So last time we spoke, I had finished the mini puff jacket from Pink Sheep Design for one child. I'd made one for myself, and I had another daughter who wanted one. She had picked out this pink and some gray, and we had ordered them from Joann's. The pink had arrived, which was just going to be her little border, and we were waiting for the main color of the gray. Well, after 2 weeks of waiting, last week I get an email from Joann's telling me that it is no longer available, refunding my money. So that was definitely a little bit of a bummer, but luckily, while I wasn't able to buy it in Joann's sale anymore, I was able to find some other gray. So I got 4 balls of this gray because they had to be ordered in packs of 2. I only needed 3, so having to order 4 was a little bit of a bummer, especially from a storage perspective. But the 2 colors go together really well. I think the original gray we picked out was a little darker, but the tones in these 2 I think go very, very well together. So this is Bernay blanket yarn. It is a, reading it upside down, size 6, super bulky. This, I will probably start this project today. My daughter is definitely excited for her mini puff jacket. And because this is big yarn, this will work up super fast. And then I'm hoping to be able to start using some of these leftovers to make a blanket. And I'm thinking maybe like a corner to corner, using just whatever scrap Bernay blanket yarns I have in whatever colors make sense for it. And then I will be able to count all of these as out of stash because the storage issue won't be there anymore. Instead of storing balls of yarn, I'm storing a blanket, which is different. You store a blanket in your lap. And it's definitely one of those things I want to finish while it is still cold enough for my daughter to enjoy it. I mean, there's always next year too, but you really don't want to get a new jacket in the middle of summer when you asked for it in the middle of winter. So that will probably be started today. Another little ramble. I ramble a lot. So in little things I got that are not yarn, I do have a couple more bits of yarn, but these are a little bit on top. This is something I actually I popped into Starbucks and saw this. I've seen them before, like around Halloween and Christmas, and then when I happened into a Starbucks in my local Target, it was just one of those where it's like, ooh, I'll treat myself after a shopping trip. And they had it in blue, which I love blues. And this counts as knitting related because the little keychain you open, and you can use it to store needles and stitch markers, and then it fits so well in project bags and on project carts. And I absolutely love the fact that, like, I can hang it from a project bag, I can hang it from a cart, anything, and it keeps some of my notions nearby. So it's not technically knitting related, but it's very knitting related for me. Okay, so my phone has my camera has a very short battery where it will only record for so long before it turns off. And as I was getting up to restart the filming, I got a notice saying that my yarn that I said I was anticipating coming in today was here. So I just ran out to get it, and when I'm done talking about all my other new acquisitions, we'll open this one together. I'm so excited. So now I want to get through everything else fast. Other things I received, I was just getting ready to talk about my new crochet hooks from Furls Fiber Arts. I really do like their streamline resin crochet hooks. They're an ergonomic design. They tend to work really well for my hands. It took me a little while to get used to it because I used to use just the tiny thin metal ones. But one of the things that I absolutely love is they have these Zodiac side collections. I'm still waiting for them to come out with mine, but you know, production on things takes a little while. So I am sure at some point I will see a Libra come out. But they just recently released Capricorn, and it's got this really pretty I'm not sure if it's like a mossy, but a very pretty green with little gold glitter. One of the fun things about these, I ordered two. This one is a G+, a 4.5 millimeter. And then this one was a size M, 8 millimeter. So these are both the same kind, but very, very different because of the way the resin pools. So I'm not affiliated with them. I just really like these hooks. And they're so pretty. I have like a whole collection of them up on my wall. So like I like getting the new colors, the new everything. I do use them, but I like keeping them where even when I'm not using them, I can appreciate how pretty they are. So these are Capricorn hooks from Furls Fiber Arts. And then I also received a shipment from Hobbii. I didn't order a lot from them. They had some silly socks in Flower Pop. It's a superwash wool, #1 super fine, 100 grams. This is color number 5. Because I only put the numbers on, I don't remember what they called it, but I may have mentioned before, sunset is my favorite color. And this just has that very sunset kind of look. So there was these. You can tell I definitely like sock yarn. It's easier to store, but I like making socks. And you can make other stuff with it, of course. Then I also got 2 of their Universe XL. 2 very different colors. This is color number 28. So it's got peaches and a few different shades of blue. And this is color number 5. Definitely kind of gives me like a mermaid in the ocean kind of vibes. They are 100 grams in each ball. It's a number 3 light. So I've used this before to make socks. They're nice and warm, a little bit thicker than other kinds. But I use some of this size and this type from their Halloween line to make a pair for my daughter, whose feet are always cold. So the thicker socks are not always a bad thing. So it does recommend a 4 to 5 millimeter knitting needle or crochet hook. So they're a little bit more substantial. And let's see. So these are 98% acrylic, 2% polyester. The polyester is the little sparkle. I don't think you can really see it running through. And it's nice to have them acrylic, especially if you're making them for somebody who's not always going to check their laundry super carefully. So if they actually accidentally end up going through the wash, they're less likely to felt or anything because they're acrylic, they're fine. It doesn't mean that they'll be perfect, especially with the metallic thread going through, but they probably won't be destroyed. So those were the sock yarns I got from Hobbii. And then if you have like a Hobbii Plus membership, you always get a little free something in each one. And this time I got little shawl pins. I don't usually use shawl pins, so I'm sure there's something I will put this on with and it'll seem like a game changer. I don't always put buttons on my cardigans, so maybe a shawl pin is just what I need those days. The main reason why I ordered from Hobbii is I have been slowly collecting points to get more of this particular yarn. So this is a vegan cashmere. I myself am not vegan. This was just, it's only available in their point store. So if you're not quite sure what vegan cashmere means, it is 100% cotton, but it's super, super soft. It's like a chainette structure. And this is in, let me see. It doesn't have a color number. Oh, there it is. Color number 15. So it's like a light blue denim-y color. It was one of those weird things where I decided to see if I could get enough free yarn using my Hobbii points to make a whole sweater. And I had enough to get 2 more of these. You can only get this yarn in their point store. So you can only get it for free technically, but you get your points by either spending money or any of the other little ways like they have scratch cards for Plus members. They have a weekly bingo game where even if you don't win any yarn in bingo, you get 25 points. So I slowly add them up, and then I only order these if I'm getting something else, because otherwise it's $10 shipping. So I had enough to get 2 more balls. I'm up to 9 of these 50-gram balls. And each one has 95 meters, so depending on what pattern I make, I should be able to start a sweater with this soon. It was just a weird thing where it's like, oh, well, I wonder if I could get a technically free sweater, even if it's not like free, because I had to spend money to get it. We'll see when I finish that. I'm almost there. So the last thing before our surprise unboxing. So I don't talk too much about what I do because it's not fiber related, but I do work with small children, and sometimes you can have a very, very stressful week working with small children. I had one of those this last week, so at the end of the week, I decided I was going to treat myself, stop by my local yarn store. I thought about going and staying for knit night. I'm trying to make myself be a little bit more social with people, like in person. Moving around a lot over the last few years, I should be better at it than I am, but I'm not. But while I was there, wow, a lot of rambling today. I picked up a new knitting bag from Knitted Niceties. They do have a Etsy shop, but it's someone based in Boise here, so we're made fairly close to where I live. And like, it was just, I kept looking at these bags when I went in. The last time I almost bought one, they were all holiday themed, and I was like, well, it's the beginning of January, I don't want to buy a Christmas bag now. But this flowered bag just, it brought me in. It'll be very spring and summery. It's got this pretty contrasting inside and some pockets in there. It's a medium-sized bag, so it's big enough to hold small projects or larger projects before they get really large. And of course, with the zipper and everything, it'll be nice for transporting. Has a nice handle. Well-made bags. I was excited to get one. And then I also picked up some needle stoppers with little iced coffee cups on them. I'm a little too far from my camera to get a good focus on them. I've got several projects that I am working on for a long time. I thought these might go great with my Advertence shawl. That's going to be a year-long project to help make sure I don't accidentally drop a stitch when it's sitting there waiting for the next part of the pattern to come out. I'm not sure why, but I don't actually own any stitch stoppers. And holding these upside down, they actually have the name of the yarn shop on them. It is Three Loves in Nampa. It's close enough to my work that it's nice to be able to stop by there when I've had a rough day. And they're always so nice there. I forgot I got a new chapstick from Portland Bee Balm. Forgot I left that in the bag. The last thing I got, this is also from Knitted Niceties. It is a Nomad sock in Nana's Afghan and Silver Rainbow. So, as you can tell, I do love a sock set. I had actually gotten a very similar sock set from Knitted Niceties. It is the same people who make the bag. I love that a lot of her yarn names have little gnome puns, just because gnomes are fun. One of the last times I went, I got a sock set that had this rainbow and the same gray mini, but instead of black, it was a blue. And then I got it home and realized I could have made my daughter's pride socks with this. It would have been perfect, but I'd only gotten one. It was like, well, I can't make enough pride socks with that. So when I happened to go in, it was like, ooh, one of my children happens to go a little bit more for blue. The other happens to go a little bit more for like blacks and grays. So now I have two, and I will be able to make them each a pair of socks for pride. This is part of my wanting to cast on to everything. Definitely a little bit of a theme going on right here. But I'm still really excited because they'll be rainbow, they'll be pride, but they also won't be so bright and in your face they'll feel like they can't wear them at other times. So in order to have them ready for June, I figure I have to start both pairs of socks by April, so I have plenty of time. If I keep them as car knitting, sometimes my socks take me about a month to make, so they may not be car knitting. Just got cut off again. I think I'm talking too much today. So I'm gonna have to keep these in my mind for planning. Otherwise, June 1st will come around and I will realize I did not cast on any socks for my children, and I had planned pride socks. Knowing how fast I knit socks, I will not get 2 done by the end of June. I'd really rather have them by the beginning. So again, these are from Knitted Niceties. I will link to their shop down below. And that is all the stuff that I had planned to share. And then we get to my nice little surprise unboxing. Sorry, I'll have to... So, to my surprise unboxing. So this is from Muse 2320, and it is Troop 2320 in 2023. So she decided she wanted to do a sock club and kind of put out the vote. Apparently the reason why the 2320 is in her name had to do with the length of the Mississippi River. At the time she opened the shop, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit, you could find a little bit more of that on her site. But the theme that was voted in for the sock club was Troop 2320. So it is supposed to be traveling down the Mississippi River, and each month will have a town or a spot or a something along the Mississippi River that is the inspiration for the yarn. So I have seen a little bit of a spoiler for this on Instagram, but I have not seen it in person yet, and I am really excited. So hopefully this opens not too awkwardly. Okay, good. So, ooh. So a nice little project bag there. So pretty. Ooh. Okay, so this is her Mockingbird 2-ply fingering. It's an 80/20 merino and nylon. And this is, oh, I'm going to say this so wrong, Lake Itasca? I will write it in the description so that if you know how to pronounce it, you know where I'm talking about instead of me completely butchering it. When I had seen it online, it looked like it had a lot more green. There's little bits of green like in the gray here, but this blue, like, ooh, like right there, that is gorgeous. Like, this really does look like you're sitting at the side of the lake and there's the little rocks and little bits of trees, and oh my goodness. Okay, so now there's one more thing that I want to do instantly, but I have plenty of commitments. I may just need to find a place where this can be art until it is turned into socks, because I will be making socks from this. I know a lot of people will get sock yarn or fingering weight yarn and they make a whole bunch of different things. I'm not really big on hats. I'm not really big on wearing gloves or mittens. And I like shawls. I kind of want to make more shawls, but the one thing I will always wear is socks. So when I get these kinds of sock yarns, they're almost always socks. So yeah, you may see these on some needles very, very soon. So that is, pick up my bag, sorry. That is all that I have. I have a lot more new yarn than I expected to have today, and I mean, I really didn't expect to be unboxing this when we started. I'm so glad I got to. I'm really glad I got here before the end of the video, even if I did end up running down to my post box in the middle of recording. That's just a normal thing. Everybody does that, right? So that is all I have for today. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for excusing my rambling. And honestly, I'd say I'm sorry I rambled, but that's why I'm doing this, so I can sit and ramble to people who hopefully enjoy hearing me ramble about yarn instead of the rest of my family who will listen to me ramble about yarn but do not feel about it the same way that we do. So until next time, happy making.